Hi, my name is Terry Reardon, and I am a manager and a therapist here at Nuview, Oklahoma. And here at Nuview, Oklahoma, our sole purpose is to help those living with some type of visual impairment, whether they are a young child all the way through grown adults. Nuview, Oklahoma is a nonprofit agency. We have two rehab offices, one in Tulsa and one in Oklahoma City, but we do cover the whole state. So no matter where a person lives in the state of Oklahoma, we do our best to be able to get out to their home, especially so that we can see the environment that the individual lives in to help us to better assess their living condition and to help them be able to live a more safe and efficient and independent life as much as possible in their own environment. So we are filming this with our friend Andrea Taylor from a Twist of Fate. And if you are out of the state of Oklahoma and you have any questions concerning Nuview, Oklahoma or anything on this video, please feel free to reach out to her and she will gladly get a hold of me and we will get back with any answers that we can. So today I am going to work with Aiden here, and I'm just going to go over three things that we find very important when it comes to working with somebody with some type of visual impairment. Everything usually comes back to these three things. Now we are going to talk about a fourth, which is assistive technology, and we'll get to that towards the end. But when we're talking about somebody that has low vision, there's three areas that we really want to look at for that person. We want to look at lighting, contrast, and magnification. These three areas can really help, whether it's a kid like Aiden who's in school, be able to see his coursework, be able to see what's on the computer, be able to answer questions on the test, or something like socializing, being able to go outside and play with his friends, and to where the parent or the teacher doesn't have to worry about his safety, because we can come up with ways to help him be able to see whether it's a crack in the sidewalk, a hole in the yard. There's so many different things that we can look at to make sure that somebody like Aiden or anybody else is going to be safe wherever they're at. So the first thing that I want to look at is lighting. And a lot of people don't understand how important lighting actually is. Aiden, and it doesn't matter what his vision is, we could have 10 kids here with the same type of vision that Aiden has, and they may all respond differently to light. So we can't say, well, Aiden likes this light, that means everybody with his visual impairment are going to like the same thing. That's not true. So we want to focus one-on-one with what's going to help Aiden the best. And what a lot of people don't realize is if we'll say like this is a classroom, and the lighting above us, unfortunately, causes 85-90% of our glare. So if Aiden's in a classroom and there's a ton of light above his eyes, he may have a hard time focusing on what is directly in front of him, thus making it seem like he can't keep up with the class, whether it's him marking the answer wrong, especially in this time when they're going through state testing. They got to fill in those little tiny circles. That can be very hard with somebody that does have a visual impairment, especially if they don't have the right type of lighting. So what I'm going to do with Aiden, and Aiden, you're more than welcome to answer these questions as we go through this. What we want to focus on here is getting this light directed below Aiden's eyes. And the reason for this is, again, if it's above his eyes, that's where we're going to get irritation. And we want to decrease as much of that irritation as possible so that wherever that light is focused, that's where his eyes can focus. So we're going to actually go through a couple of different bulbs here. And the reason why we want to go through a couple of different bulbs is, again, everybody responds to light differently. And so we want to make sure that we have a couple of different options for Aiden. Now, of course, because we are not in his home and we are not in an actual classroom, a lot of times we cannot plug something in to a desk in a classroom because it will cause a tripping hazard, and we can't do that. They do make battery operated lights. When we come out and do an assessment in the classroom, we bring all the necessities to do a really good assessment for the student. So Aiden, this first light here is going to be a soft white. And I'm just going to put this in front of you. You don't have to worry about reading any of this. But right now, as we can see, the lighting in here is not the best, so it may be harder for Aiden to really focus on what's in front of him. So as soon as I turn this light on, you can already tell that we got light shining now, and it's a lot brighter. So if I turn that off, it almost looks like there's no light on in the room at all. So when we turn that on, Aiden, you just tell me, does the light help?
Yeah.
Okay. Now again, this is a yellow type of light, so we're going to turn this one off. And again, I know this is just a demonstration purpose. We always want to show LED lights because LEDs are going to give off less glare. And a lot of times we want to show 40 watt and 60 watt bulbs because again, depending on their light sensitivity, a 60 watt bulb may be too bright. So we definitely would want to make sure we have all those different options available. So this bulb right here, this is a daylight bulb, so it's going to be a little bit different type of light here. So Aiden, this is not going to be as yellow, so this pretty much has no yellow in it. Out of those two lights, which one do you think would be easiest on your eyes?
The first one.
Okay, so by doing that type of assessment, again, that's going to allow us to determine what type of light is going to help Aiden, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's at home doing his homework, but also in the bathroom areas, the closet areas, things to help Aiden be able to pick out clothing on his own, be able to, in the bathroom, simple things, putting toothpaste on a toothbrush can make all the difference for somebody like Aiden. Being able to fix his own hair, the lighting can make all the difference for these individuals. Now sometimes maybe we can't get a lamp where we need it. Maybe we're at a restaurant and we don't have good lighting there. A flashlight can do just as good. You can turn that on, you can shine it on the menu. This allows, again, Aiden to be more independent. He doesn't have to rely on his mom or a sibling or anything like that to read the menu for him. By pulling out a flashlight and using it is going to allow him to see food on his plate and anything of that sort. So again, that's where lighting really plays a role when you're talking about somebody that is living with a visual impairment. The other thing that because we're going to move on to our next section here, and I know I might be flying through these on this video, but again, please reach out to myself or Andrea and we can definitely answer more questions, or if there is somebody that you know that would need to be referred to nuview to get some low vision therapy, they're definitely going to get a lot more in-depth assessment than what we're actually going over on this video. So the next thing that I want to talk about is contrast. When we talk about contrast, what we're talking about is light on dark. And what I mean by that is if I was in Aiden's home and I asked him to pour me a glass of milk and I put it in a white mug, there might be a chance that Aiden will overflow that cup because you're going to have inside of that mug is going to be white. You're pouring milk, so you got white on white, and sometimes it's hard for somebody with a visual impairment to see that liquid rising, which in return can cause them to overflow that cup. Kind of like pouring coffee into a black mug. That's not always the best idea. So when we talk about contrast, we want to make sure that we have either a dark background with light on top or a light background with dark on top. So if Aiden said, you know, I'm always overflowing my water when I pour it and I notice he's pouring water into a clear glass, I'm going to tell him, okay, let's get rid of the clear glasses, let's go to plastic, or let's go to something with different colors on it. You know, a lot of times we might put a remote control, which a lot of times is darker, on a couch or a chair, and if that chair or couch is darker, we could be looking right at that remote and not see it. And again, a simple thing would be, you know, put a white towel over on the arm of that couch or chair, put the remote on top of that. It's going to let that pop out a little bit easier for that. The other thing is, when we're talking about contrast, you know, outside, especially when we're getting to the summertime, we got the sun is always our brightest light. And this is where kids, they want to spend time outside, but somebody like Aiden steps outside and it's bright and sunny, it might be too much for his eyes. And a lot of times to tell if somebody is irritated by that light is they're going to cover their eyes like this when they step outside, or if they're in a bright area, they'll do this. Basically what they're doing is they're trying to get that light out of their eyes. A lot of times they might wear a ball cap. Sometimes you might see individuals in like a shopping mall or a grocery store, and they're wearing dark sunglasses. A lot of times they do that, not all the times, but a lot of times they do that because of glare sensitivity, and they're trying to decrease that light intake to make seeing things a little bit easier. And that's where you can help with contrast. So somebody like Aiden, you know, socializing is so important, not only for kids, but also for adults. And if somebody like Aiden, let's say he's at school and it's now time for recess, and his teacher says, well, you know, I'm sorry, Aiden, we can't let you go outside because the sun's really shining. I know you're very sensitive to the sunlight. Well, now that causes somebody like Aiden to not be able to go outside and play with his friends. And unfortunately, that can have an effect on a young child. But something as simple as solar shields can make all the difference. And a couple years ago, I was able to actually work with Aiden, and we did do one of these assessments. And we were able to take him outside and figure out what type of solar shield worked best for his eyes. But in this case, I'm just showing you a couple of different pairs here. Again, I know we are kind of flying through this, and there would be a lot more in-depth assessment if it was an in-person training. But something like these are amber colored solar shields. The thing with amber colored is these are going to be really good for cloudy days, a little bit darker days, because what they're going to do is they are going to attract some light, but at the same time they're not going to attract too much light. Now these are not going to be good for nighttime, really dark areas, because unfortunately it is going to make things a little too dark. And in return, when you make things too dark, that could be hard for somebody like Aiden if he's outside playing and he goes from grass to concrete or concrete to grass, and if he doesn't see that transition, that could cause him to trip and fall, and we definitely wanted to keep them as safe as possible. Then you're going to have yellow. You know, yellow does attract light, so on a bright sunny day for a lot of our clients, yellow is not the best option because again it's going to attract even more light and it's going to make it even brighter outside. But where yellow is really good is nighttime areas, restaurants, when it's a little cloudy outside, because again it's going to attract that light and it's going to make things a little bit brighter, and it's going to increase that contrast just a little bit as well. And then there's also plum. You know, plum's going to be really good for those bright sunny days, and it's going to decrease that light intake, but it's also not going to make it too dark to where they can't see what's in front of them. You know, some of our patients are very light sensitive. You know, I don't recommend gray a whole lot because unfortunately with really dark gray sunglasses, you're pretty much taking all contrast away, and it can make it very hard for them to see, you know, if there's a crack in the sidewalk or if there's a different elevation. A lot of people don't realize that a simple elevation change, whether it's up or down, can cause somebody to fall because they don't see that, and then they'll stumble forward. If there's a curb, if there's a step that they don't see, again, those are all tripping hazards, and we definitely want to, you know, do our best to get away from those. And also transitioning from inside to outside. A lot of clients, they'll call it the blind effect. If I am outside and it's really bright and sunny and I step inside of my home to where it's not as bright, a lot of times they have that, it's just a white fog and they can't see for about 30 seconds. Or if they're in a dark area and they step outside to a bright area, again, it takes their eyes just a little bit of time to adjust. So a lot of times putting on the solar shields or the glasses are going to help them transition, help their eyes transition a little bit faster. You know, they do make those transition lenses and glasses, and those are good. Unfortunately, sometimes it does take a little too long for those glasses to change, so they do have to kind of sit there and let those let the kind of the gray in those glasses transition so that they can decrease that sun intake. So contrast, again, there's so many different things that we don't think about. Cooking, again, being able to tell the front burners from the back burners. Something as simple as putting a bright colored piece of duct tape on the front burners so that if somebody wants to turn on the front burners, they say, okay, there's the tape. I know these two burners are the front ones. I don't want to turn these other ones because that's going to turn on the back burner. And a lot of times when we work with people, especially kids with cooking, we do our best to try to teach them to use the front burners as much as possible so they're not having to reach over if they accidentally turn on the front burner and they meant to turn on the back burner, there's a chance they might burn themselves. Also, there are things that we call bump dots. Putting bump dots on a microwave can make all the difference for somebody like Aiden, to where if he wanted to make some popcorn, instead of him having to type in 300 start, he could feel wherever that bump is, and if it's on the popcorn button, then he can just hit that button. So these can make all the differences. And again, it's all about making things as simple as possible. The last thing we want to do is frustrate somebody like Aiden or any of our clients anymore, because a lot of times when you're dealing with visual impairment, they're already frustrated. They struggle with reading or writing or seeing somebody's face or getting around independently. So there's already that frustration level. And a lot of times individuals, when they hear low vision therapy, they think, well, now we're going to come in and just make it even more difficult for them. And that's not the case. Our job is to come in and make things as simple as possible, to give ideas that maybe the parent or the caregiver or the teacher, whoever it may be, never thought about, and to just make life a lot simpler for that individual. A quick example might be somebody might buy shampoo and conditioner. The bottles may look exactly the same, and they don't know how to tell the difference between the shampoo and conditioner. Put a rubber band over one of them. I tell them, do you feel the rubber band? Yes. Okay, that's your conditioner. Do you feel the rubber band? No. There's your shampoo. It's simple techniques like that is our job to come in and help with. And that's why we want to come into the patient's environment as much as possible. I understand that we can't always do that, and that's perfectly fine. We can show the same techniques in our office as well. So now I'd like to move on to magnification. With magnification plays a huge role into individuals with some type of visual impairment. A lot of times glasses are going to be recommended from their optometrist or ophthalmologist, but sometimes glasses still, unfortunately, are just not enough. But also, having a really good magnification assessment done can make all the difference for the child or the adult, but especially in Aiden's case, it can make all the difference to help him with reading a homework assignment, reading a book, seeing things on his computer. These are all things that we definitely want to look at with this individual, because unfortunately sometimes people will just run up to the hardware store or grocery store, whatever it might be, and they're going to pick up a magnifier. Well, the only downfall with that is most of those stores are only going to carry up to about 3x magnification. Well, what if that client needs a 4 or 5x magnification? Unfortunately, that magnifier, that 3x magnifier, is never going to be enough for them. And we see this all the time with our clients, is when we talk about magnification, they say, oh, it's not going to work for me. I got 5 magnifiers at home and I can't read with any of them. Well, the downfall is, one, they aren't using it the way that magnifiers are meant to be used, and 2, it's probably not the right strength of magnifier that they actually need. So we actually do a magnification assessment. So I'm going to bring up a couple of different magnifiers here, and the reason why I got different sizes and different strength is because we have to understand that magnifiers are going to be, they're not going to look all the same, because a lot of times we'll get the patients that say, oh, I want that really big magnifier that you can put over the page of a book. The downfall is that's only about a 1.5, 2x magnification, and for our clients, that's never going to be enough magnification, unfortunately. So in somebody like Aiden's case, if we were going to do a magnification assessment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, again, with a reading material like this, and you can already see that it's really big up here. Now, none of this makes sense because this is actually a little bit different type of test that our therapists do with the clients. But then if we flip it over, you can tell that it's going to get really, really small down here. And so let's just say with their glasses, they're able to read down here. Well, then we're going to do our best with magnification and see how far down we can get. Because if we can get them down to about this 1.0 down here, then they're going to be able, with that magnifier, they're going to be able to read pretty much any newspaper, magazine, anything like that. You get a little bit smaller down here. You're going to be looking at cooking instructions, little fine, medication bottles. Way down here, if we can get them down there, that's fine, but really there's not going to be a whole lot with that smaller print, so we're not too worried about that. Really, our main goal is about 1.0, 0.8, maybe 0.6. If we can get down to that level, then we know we got the right type of magnification for that individual. So as you can tell here, a 3x magnifier is always going to have the biggest window. So we have a handheld magnifier, and then we have a stand. And some people might want to say, well, why would you need both of those? So a handheld magnifier is mainly going to be used for spot reading. Somebody like Aiden, he's not going to hold this up and sit there and try to read his history book in class. It's not going to happen. It's his eyes are going to wear out really quick, and then his eyes are going to get irritated, and he's just going to give up at that point. And it wouldn't be his fault. These magnifiers are not made for long periods of reading. These are what we call spot reading. I turn on the light here and I say, okay, I need to put these cookies in the microwave. How long do I put them in there for? I look at it and say, okay, 325 for 10 minutes. I turn that magnifier off. Handheld magnification, I usually tell my clients 30 seconds. That's about all you should be reading with that. Again, you got to scan with it as well. So reading speed at first is going to decrease, but the more they practice and the more they use it, they will get that left to right scanning completed, and they'll be able to get their reading speed back up to where they need to be. A stand magnifier, this is where this would help somebody like Aiden to read a history book, because these are made for longer periods of reading. It has a bigger glass window. Again, this is a 3x magnifier, so the window is going to be bigger. It's going to have the light onto it. This is where you're going to put it down. You're going to cover more area, and then I am just going to slide it back and forth on that material, and then come down, slide it back and forth, and I don't have to hold it, so I don't have to worry about my arms getting tired, anything like that. It's just straight down, and I'm just moving it back and forth. There's also dome magnifiers. Dome magnifiers are really good for kids in schools. The only downfall is a lot of these do not have a light built into them, and having that light can really make all the difference if they're going to be able to see that printed material or not. But a lot of times maybe this is the only option that they can have in the school district, and that is perfectly fine. But again, teaching them how to use it. Again, you want to use a magnifier just like we read left to right, up to down. So we got to make sure as we're training the kids that we go left to right, and then we come back on that same line and we go down. We go left to right, we come back and we go down. Again, at first they are going to be slow with this, and that's okay. The more they do it, the more they get used to it, they're going to catch right back up. There's no reason why a child with a visual impairment should be held back because of their reading. It's our job to get them that right type of magnification so that they can keep up with the class. Unfortunately, a lot of times kids are held back because of reading or writing, but a lot of times maybe the parent or the teacher doesn't understand that they have low vision. That's nothing against the parent or the teacher, but sometimes getting them into that doctor early, get them to the optometrist, ophthalmologist, get them in there as early as possible so that they can help detect if they do have some type of visual impairment, and then getting them some type of low vision therapy so the therapist can come in and do that assessment in their classroom and get the material, whether it's lighting, magnification, contrast. Those are things that we're going to do our best to figure out for that student. All right, so as you can see here, and the reason why I wanted to bring up some different ones is if they need stronger magnification, let's say 3x is not strong enough, we go to a 4x. The downfall that you're going to see here is the window is smaller the stronger the magnification. Reason for that, you've got to have thicker glass. And, unfortunately, if we were to have this big of glass in a 4, 5, 6x magnification, the prices of those magnifiers unfortunately would go up a little bit. 6x magnifier compared to a 3x, you can see that window is so much smaller. And I will say that teaching a young person to read with a 6x stand, you don't get a whole lot of material in there. So even if I was having Aiden look at this, he's only going to get 1 to 2 words at a time, and he's really going to have to scan this a lot to read the material. And unfortunately, the reading speed is going to decrease a lot, unfortunately, at that point. So if somebody ever did have to go to about a 5 or 6x, this is where we are going to talk to them about electronic magnification. Electronic magnification, again, it allows us to, and I'll try to hold this up here, it's going to allow us to zoom in and out. So if you can see this, so I'm at 7x magnification, I'm at 9x, it'll go up to 12x, back down to 5x. Now this is just one type of electronic magnifier. There are a bunch of them out there, but this is just one that I have here. We can also change the contrast if they need black on yellow, yellow on black, regular, bolded out, or white on black, depending on how they can see the material. That's the great thing about electronic magnification. And then if we do need a 5x, we're going to get more lettering, more words on that screen, and we're going to be able to increase our reading speed a lot more at that point. Or even if we're way down here at 0.8 M magnification, or I'm sorry, 0.8 M reading print, we can still zoom that in and make that a lot easier for that individual to be able to read with. So again, when we talk about magnification, having an assessment done is going to make all the difference for that client. There's also a monocular. Sometimes a child with a visual impairment, maybe they can't sit at the front of the classroom. And so maybe they can't see the board, or they can't see what the teacher is writing on that board. There are monoculars, and these are really good. Again, it's going to be able to zoom in from far away distances. So if Aiden was sitting in his classroom and he's 30 feet away from that board and he can't quite see what the teacher is writing, monocular, again, he's going to put this on and he's going to focus it in, and then he would be able to zoom in on that board. And again, he's going to have to scan to see that, but something this size that he could put in his pocket and carry it with him back and forth from home to school or from classroom to classroom is going to help Aiden be able to see what the teacher is putting on the board at any given time. Again, this is all going to be part of a magnification assessment that they would get from one of our therapists, or again, if you're not in the state of Oklahoma, there are other resources out there that we would definitely do our best to help find for you. So there is one other thing that I want to cover in this video, and that is assistive technology. Now with assistive technology, there's low tech and there's high tech, and I'm going to go over more of the higher tech stuff when it relates to computers, because a lot of kids nowadays are using computers in the classroom, or if they're homeschooled, or if they're doing virtual learning, they are having to be on a computer. And if they are dealing with some type of visual impairment, using the computer may be a little difficult for them, or seeing what's on that screen may be a little difficult for them. So low tech, a handheld magnifier again would be a low tech assistive technology. That electronic magnifier that I showed you would be more towards the higher end tech of electronic magnification. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to pull up a laptop here, and on this laptop we have a couple of different software programs on here. Now I'm only going to show you one of these for right now, but let's say we have a child that has very little vision or no vision at all. Well, at that point, they're going to need everything talked back to them. So whatever's on that screen, they're going to need that read back to them. And there is a screen reader called JAWS, and it's a really good piece of software. A lot of our clients that have to use JAWS, I have coworkers that are blind, and they use JAWS for writing notes, checking emails, all different things like that, and they're constantly being talked to by the computer, so they know where they're at on the screen at all times. So that is a great piece of software that's available. There's also another type of software, and it is called ZoomText. And ZoomText is for individuals that have low vision, but maybe they just need a little bit more increased magnification. ZoomText will also do some, as you can hear, it will do
ZoomText Magnifier Reader. Talk to Zoom. Welcome to ZoomText 2021. We know you're eager to start using ZoomText.
So I'm just going to have that be quiet. But as you can tell,
ZoomText Magnifier
with
Reader.
ZoomText on here,
ZoomText updates available. Do you want to install the updates? No. ZoomText.
So it's just going to talk to me at any point, and I can make it be quiet.
ZoomText Magnifier.
Yeah, because it does happen a lot. No, it does happen a lot. So with the ZoomText is we can actually turn off the reader if they do not need that part on it. But the good thing about it is if I need to zoom in, I can zoom this screen in, and I don't know if you can see that, but I can zoom that in, and it's telling me where I'm at on the zoom, and that can let us know, okay, where does this student need to be when it comes to magnification on the computer. If we get to a point where they say, oh, I can see that really well, we can save that default setting. So anytime they log on to that computer, or anytime the computer reboots, anything like that, it automatically comes right back to that setting for that child. Now, again, just like regular magnification, when you are magnifying something, we do have to, again, you're going to get decreased viewing area, so you are going to have to move that cursor around to find what you're looking for. If I click on something, it's going to tell me what I am on. If that's what I want, I can double click on that to open that up. Now, Windows does have its own accessibility options, which we always go through that first, because sometimes the Windows accessibility options are good enough for the student, and then they don't have to worry about purchasing any additional software because we can set up their computer to use what's already built on that computer. And again, nothing against teachers or parents or anything like that. If they're not tech savvy, they don't understand that those accessibility options are already built on these machines. And that's our job, is to come in and show them that and sit down with the student and teach them how to use these accessibility options. So we're going to close that. And then the last thing is cell phones. A lot of kids, when they get to teenage age, Aiden's age, different, as they grow up, a lot of kids nowadays have cell phones. And being able to help that child use that cell phone can really, help them if they're, if for some reason they got separated from their mom or dad or whoever it might be, or if they're not feeling well at school and the teacher says, okay, we need you to contact your parents, they can do that. And there's, iOS and Android are the two main types of software out there when it comes to a cell phone. So cell phones are something that a lot of kids nowadays have, and a lot of them, especially when it deals with low vision or some type of visual impairment, it may be hard for them to see the screen. It may be hard for them to read a text message, to be able to look up contacts, to be able to call somebody. And the great thing about cell phones is there's so many different types of apps out there that can help somebody with low vision. This is an iPhone. The great thing about iPhone is Siri. Siri can really make all the difference for somebody like Aiden. If Aiden was at school and maybe he got to where he wasn't feeling well, and the teacher says, let's go ahead and call your mom, or let's text her, he could say, hey Siri, text Icewife.
do you want to say?
And I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. But basically, she said, what do you want me to say? I could say, I'm not feeling well. Can you come to school to pick me up? And she's going to say, okay, do you want me to send this? Aiden could say yes. She'd say, okay, sent. And then his mom texts him back and says, yeah, but it's going to be about 20 minutes. He could say, hey Siri, read me my last text message. And she's going to read that last text message aloud to him. Also, he could say, hey Siri, call mom. She's going to call his mom automatically for him. I can also turn on voiceover. Voiceover, like I showed earlier, it is a verbal app that it's a screen reader for your phone. So it's going to tell you, where you're at all times on your phone.
Use reminders, stocks, iTunes Store, App Store, books, news, home.
So it's telling me where I'm at on that, and it's saying double tap to open. So if I double tap,
Home, iCloud required.
it's going to go ahead and bring me to that app that I was on. And the good thing about
Selected. Select voiceover off.
these things is they're easy to turn on and off. We can go in and we can set up, to where Aiden could say, hey Siri, turn on voiceover, or hey Siri, open up email, and she's already listening to me, but he could say open up calendar, whatever it might be, and she's going to do that automatically for him. So there, again, a lot of people don't understand all that you can do with assistive technology, and really it's not their responsibility to do that. It's it's a low vision therapist to understand how to do all these different techniques. Also, assistive technology specialists are going to be able to do a lot more intel of what a cell phone, a computer, a tablet, anything like that is going to be able to do for somebody like Aiden or anybody with some type of visual impairment.